Firstly, in relation to Mark Binskin, I've worked very closely with Mark Binskin. He's been a great contributor to our country for many decades. He served our country in uniform, and he's a fine person. He's been given mission impossible by the Prime Minister because this is about a political outcome for the Prime Minister, I'm sorry to say. The death of this young aid worker, of the 7 aid workers, is a tragedy, and Israel has taken responsibility. Unlike Hamas, they've said that there'll be an investigation and that there'll be transparency. But what the Prime Minister is doing here in appointing Mark Binskin is not hoping for some discovery of a silver bullet or some thing that's being hidden by the Israelis. What the Prime Minister is doing here is trying to find a pathway through what's obviously a torn ALP. The caucus of the Australian Labor Party is split at the moment, and frankly the Prime Minister's response to people who are living in fear in Jewish communities in our country at the moment has been deplorable. And nobody wants to see the death of any individual. But what we've seen here by the Prime Minister is a political response. And frankly, whilst Mark Binskin is an excellent public servant and is beyond reproach an incredible individual, he's been given mission impossible by this Prime Minister because the Prime Minister is after a political outcome for what is obviously a lot of angst and difficulty within the left wing of his Labor caucus. That's the reality, and it should be called out. He'll express outrage, of course, but that's the reality of what he's done here, and I think the Jewish community continues to remain shocked by the Prime Minister, who seeks to walk both sides of the street.
Has the IDF acted against international law when it picked that convoy?
Well, again, those matters can be investigated. The Israelis have committed themselves to an open investigation. It's a tragic loss of life. Been very clear about that. And of course, the day before the Hamas attacks, there was a ceasefire, and the Hamas terrorist group still holds 40 people captive that they abducted on October 7. Those people should be returned back to Israel, and people should be able to enjoy peace in the Middle East, but they won't whilst Hamas continues down their terrorist path. Don't forget that Hamas is a listed terrorist organisation in our country and in other Western countries around the world. So I think the Prime Minister here needs to stand up and show leadership. He needs to support the Jewish community. All of us have expressed outrage and shock and at the tragic loss of life of Australian citizens, and of course, as James Patterson pointed out this morning, this is not the first Australian who lost her life in this terrible circumstance, and I believe that the Prime Minister here is seeking a political outcome, which is, I think, our country deserves more from our Prime Minister than what we're getting at the moment. All right.
This morning that tax cuts will be the central cost of living relief in the budget. Is that enough, and do you think the government should be offering more direct support to households and struggling businesses?
Well, the government spent over $200 billion extra over the course of the last 2 years, and that's what's driven up inflation and therefore interest rates. People are talking about interest rates coming down this year. I hope they do, but that's not the indication we're getting from the Reserve Bank at the moment. And I just don't think Anthony Albanese understands how to manage the economy. Every decision he makes is driving up the price of electricity. It's driving up the price of every cost of living pressure that families are experiencing at the moment. The softening in retail and in hospitality, that really is having a negative impact because families are struggling to pay their bills under this government. And I just don't think Anthony Albanese has a clue what he's doing when it comes to managing the economy. And this will be their third budget. The first two have contributed to higher interest rates and higher cost of living pressures. And I hope for the sake of families and small businesses around the country that the government can do better in their third budget in May. All right? Thank you very much.